This thing is called a bobbin winder. It is used to wrap embroidery floss onto bobbins. So I'm going to show you today how to use one of these tools. First of all, you'll notice that there's a base that has like a T here on the bottom. That lines up with the edge of one of your boxes, your embroidery floss boxes. You shove it down onto that, and that's not going anywhere. Next, you want to have one of your bobbins. I prepped mine with a sticker. And then your embroidery floss. Now, how you want to label or keep track of your bobbins is completely up to you. I'm going to do this the way that I like to. And that is by actually winding the floss over my label. That way I know that this is actually that color. I have acquired many other previously used collections. So, all right, first of all, you always want to pull from the skein from the end that the big label was on. Always. Otherwise, you'll end up tangled. I don't know why, but that's how it always ends up. So, you'll want to start with one side, and you'll want to wind it 5 or 6 times around towards you. Okay? Next, there's this pin right here. You're going to want to carefully pop that out. It just pops right out. It's just friction that's holding it in there. Next, you're going to put the side with the hole into that slot right here. You're going to put that in the slot, and you're going to line up the holes. You're going to put the pin into that hole. Now it's going to wobble just a little bit. That's okay. Next, it's going to take a little bit of practice and coordination. This is the technique that I taught myself and figured out worked for me. So you'll want to hold on to the thread with one hand. And then you're also going to want to hold on to the box with like 1 or 2 fingers, just to keep it from moving around as you're trying to wind. So it takes a little bit of coordination, but you'll figure it out at some point. I also tend to rest my wrist on it, so that also helps. So you want to be able to hold the box still. You're going to hold the thread, and you're going to grab it, and you're going to start winding, so that way you keep going in the same direction you were winding before. And this part of your hand is going to guide back and forth where the thread is going to get wound onto the bobbin. So I'm going to wind. See how I'm moving back and forth? And I move back to the left as I continue to wind. And I'm just holding a little bit of tension. I'm not yanking it really tight. I'm just holding on to it to keep it even. And I keep winding and I keep winding. And I'm putting pressure with this side of my finger. I'm putting that pressure on the box right here. Right here. And that's what's keeping the box from moving all over the places I'm trying to wind. So I'm pushing down and I'm holding onto the thread. Now, I find that when I try and wind, when it's like this, where I'm just like pulling it from the skein, it gets kind of messy. So I like to pull a couple yards out, but I like to keep it neat. So I pull a couple yards out, and then I just go back to winding. And I wind. And if you want it to fit into your box neatly, you're going to want to try and get the thickness even, so you don't end up with like a thick spot and a really thin spot. I mean, it doesn't have to be perfect, but it'll fit much more neatly in your floss box if it's a little bit more even, and you'll be able to get more floss into your floss box if you do it more evenly. All right, I've reached the end of what I pulled out, so I pull out the rest. I'm just collecting these in here for now so I actually know how many I did today. And then you wind and wind and wind. And that's it. So now what you choose to do is kind of up to you. First, you're going to pop out the pin that's holding this in place. So you pop it out. Then you can just put it back in, push it just a little bit so it holds. There's that. So now I know some people like to just leave it like this with the loose end. Some people will put the end in there. I find that I like to have it secure so it's not going to accidentally come undone. And I find that this isn't always secure. So I like to get about 4 inches and I put my finger around the back and I wrap around my finger, come through one notch, come back out the other notch, and then when I pull my finger out, I've got this hole. And so I tuck that thread into that hole and then pull it tight, and then that's caught. And even though there's kind of this floppy end, it's not going to come unwound. So that is how I wind and use a bobbin winder. And it's really stuck. So that's how I use a bobbin winder to get my nice and neat bobbins.